Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I'm Maddie, leading marketing here at Pathwork, and I want to officially welcome you to your 30-minute AI upgrade. Today, our co-founder and CEO, Ian Levinsky, is going to show you how he runs an AI native insurance tech company as an AI native CEO. And we're going to get super practical, so you can walk away with some valuable tactics in just the next half hour or so. So while we're waiting for everyone to join and just some more people to trickle in, I have a quick poll for you to answer. So you should have seen that pop up on your screen. We'd love to get a read on the room. The question is, what do you currently use AI for? So take a second to answer that. I'll go through some housekeeping items in the meantime. So Ian will faithfully stick to a 30-minute walkthrough of his tools and workflows, and then we'll leave about 15 minutes for questions at the end. There is a Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. So drop your questions in there at any time throughout the talk. No need to wait until the end to send them. We may even ask them as they come in if they're relevant to what Ian's talking about. I have some questions of my own for Ian. So please join me in asking whatever you're curious about. There are no dumb questions. And then lastly, we'll share the recording, of course, with you afterwards so you can revisit it or share it with your team. All right, let's look at these poll results. Thank you everyone for answering. All right, let's share the results. Everyone should be able to see that. Okay, so we have quite a few people writing and editing emails, some building slide decks. Love it. A wide range, even settling some arguments at home. Love to hear that. And shout out to everyone using AI for underwriting. Very cool. So actually just a little backstory, and this is true, about how we built that poll that you just answered. So we wanted to come up with some engaging poll questions for you all. So we actually asked AI for ideas. It gave us some options, mostly generic and pretty forgettable, like the one you see here on the left. So Ian and I came up with a better question of our own and then had AI generate a bunch of multiple choice answers for us, which it was actually great at. And then, of course, we added in a couple of our own answers too. But just wanted to share this anecdote because it's a really good example of where AI excels, where you should use AI, and where it just really falls flat. So it did the legwork for us, but the actual judgment, the taste, the creativity, that, was human and that, kind of remains true across the board, regardless of the specific example. So um, yes, and we did use AI to make the slide too. So with that little meta moment, I will hand it over to you, Ian, to get us started.
Thank you, Maddie. And Maddie, thanks for being a great collaborator on that poll. For everyone, really, really excited to be on this webinar today for you all. We're going to be doing all the phrases. So we'll be opening up the kimono, we'll be peeling back the curtains, we'll be lifting the veil, we'll be showing you all what's under the hood. But first, the other thing that we're going to be doing is, and I always like to share this as much as I can, is our mission at Pathwork is to power the people behind every policy. So with 100 or so folks that are joining us here today and to anybody listening to the recording, we're really hoping to give you some power that you can take back to your jobs and tasks every day and, get some real value out of it. So again, thank you for joining. So for those who don't know me or haven't met me, Ian Levinsky, CEO and co-founder at Pathwork. My story is we started the business a little more than 2 years ago. We started it after I had spent about 5 or 6 years of my life building a tech-enabled life and health insurance brokerage. So I got a really, really great firsthand experience of how work is done within the space between distributors and insurance carriers. I also am a licensed life and health insurance producer. I sell a handful of policies every single year to make sure my pencil still stays sharp on what's working in the space. But ultimately, for me, my motivation is I've always been really, really drawn to hard problems. I get a ton of fulfillment out of solving them. And I really like pulling together businesses around some of these hard problems that ultimately end up delighting customers, and you get the opportunity to pull some really cool teams together to solve this. For those who don't know Pathwork, we call ourselves the intelligence and automation platform for the life and annuity space. This is one of those hard challenges. Distributing these products is difficult, connecting brokers and carriers and making sure that the decisions and work are sound on the decision side and that the work is, as simple and as fast as it can be is the mission that we're under. So before we get into too much, I thought it'd be valuable to give some context. So we say this all the time is that we feel very, very lucky and grateful to be growing up alongside the rapid commercialization of AI. So if you look back, it's really been a journey of about 5 years, which is not that much time. So back in November 2022 is officially when ChatGPT launched, which is kind of the explosion of all this. And over the course of the last 5 years, some of those major milestones is back in May 2024, a model called ChatGPT 4.0 came out, where the tools really went from kind of toys to being really, really useful. By early 2025, nearly 500 million people were using these tools every single day. And then I'd say the last 6 to 8 months, we've seen a shift where so much has gone into agentic software coding, and then enterprises are starting to adopt these tools. So really, that's what the evolution has been. As I mentioned, Pathwork was founded 2 years ago, back when these tools were kind of simple in nature. So again, very grateful that we've seen our tools expand in what they can handle, as well as how valuable they are for our customers. So getting into it, here's the plan on what we're going to cover today. Number one, we're going to kind of go into the mindset of how I think about my job, my tasks, and which these tools we pull together to help me in my work. We're going to get into the mechanics. So how you can get AI to work for you and do it reliably. I'll share my current stack, what the tools are, how much they cost. And then at the end, I'll share a little bit about where I'm thinking about things going next. As Maddie said, rules of engagement, we want this to be more dialogue than anything. So Q&A is going to be open throughout the entire presentation. Maddie is going to be interrupting me whenever there's really, really good questions. As I said, I'm going to try to get through the content in about 30 minutes. We have 15 minutes for Q&A, but if there's really engaging questions, we'll stay as long as we need.
Ian, we actually already have a question. Somebody who's interested in learning more about the 2024 Slackbot era. So maybe you can take us back in time a little bit real quick. AI has changed so much since then. What was it like putting AI in front of customers back then?
It's a really good question. Let me think about that. So if I take it back in 2024, the team at Pathwork was just Blake, myself, and our first software engineer, Albedo. We were really looking for a first use case where when we put it in front of customers, it would seem magical. So we tried a handful of different things. What we ended up learning is AI tools back then were really good at kind of having a storage of information and documents and then being able to sift through it and answer questions in real time. So essentially like an extension of a chatbot. So we called kind of our first three customers. It was over my bar of excellence for what I thought was valuable. So we put it out there and we got a lot of feedback and continuing to improve on it. And now actually the same semblance or kind of surface that we built for that is actually in our tool today. It's called our knowledge assistant. If I were to run the same query with our AI Slack bot back in 2024 versus what it can do today, it would be like night and day. So we've just seen the tools get so much more valuable and really explode in how useful they are. Does that answer the question, Maddie?
Yeah, that's perfect. And we actually got one more while we're on the sort of AI timeline topic. What are your thoughts in regard to the rising popularity of second brain development?
Ooh, that's interesting. Um, I've actually never heard that term before, so I'll have to expound on what I think it means. I'm guessing by second brain, probably what people are thinking is like it's like an extension of yourself or something else you work alongside of. That's not how I think about it. I think these are tools. And like with all tools, you still need somebody holding the tools who knows how to use them. And somebody who knows how to hold more sophisticated tools better can get more done. So I've never heard second brain before, but again, I view these as tools. Like you still have incredibly intelligent, creative people that are trying to get the most out of the tools.
Awesome. Thanks,
Cool.
Dan.
So where I want to start was taking things as high level as I can. So I've thought about this idea of like, how have these tools rewired my thinking? And I've really pulled it down into these four concepts. So I want to talk a little bit about these before we get into the tactics. So number one, I feel that separation is like one of the most important ways I think about this stuff. I found that when you can separate your jobs into very clean workspaces, these tools end up to doing a much better job. There's not mixture of context, there's not mixture of ideas, and you separate it. It's a lot like how life works. You want to make it, very cleanly separated from your personal life, your professional life, all different aspects of your life so it works better. Second is distillation. I feel like when you give these tools really, really big, monstrous things to think through, you're just giving more opportunity for it to make mistakes or not achieve what you were hoping to achieve. Again, much like life, like if you're training a new employee, you don't want to throw the whole handbook at them. You want to break things down into tasks and help them build that context over time. Third is you got to overload these tools with context. They can have up to 1 million tokens, which 1 million tokens is like 2 War and Peaces, I believe, is like technically what it can handle. So the more context you put into it, once you've distilled down to the right task, the more valuable and the more right these tools are and the more they can provide. But probably what's broken my brain the most is this idea of parallelization. Um, a person can only do one task at a time. And then the other thing is if you want to redo that same task and try again, it has to be done in sequence. So what's really broken my brain and changed how I work is I try to do tons of tasks in parallel. And then within that task, I have my AI tools run it as many times as possible. So what I ultimately do is like we'll have many, many tasks running in the background, and then I'll go and check on those and then pick the best version for that. And it just really changed how I think and work. But ultimately, underlying all of this is safety, privacy, security, and accuracy. Insurance is a highly regulated industry. I have a lot of private information that I keep segregated out of these tools. And ultimately, like as you're thinking through this, you always need to have that as an underlying layer behind it. So getting into it, we thought the best way to explain how AI works is this idea of breaking it down from the job, the task, and the tools. So at the highest level, we really view a job as a collection of tasks. And what we've seen is these things called agent harnesses are the environments where your tasks are now starting to get done. So obviously the question I think out of this is the word agent harness, like what does that mean? What is it? So how we view an agent harness is it's really your operating system. Examples of harnesses are, applications like Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, Cursor. There's an open source assistant called OpenClaw. And what these operating systems do is they're areas where memory of your previous tasks is stored and stays. There's different models you can select from for different tasks where they would resonate better. It's got a history of your preferences. It's got a full library of workflows that you want to have. And then importantly, it's connected to all your other tools and applications. So this image here on the left is a good visualization of that. Essentially, you have your agent harness in the middle, which can access or use compute or information or other data to complete its task. And this agent is allowed to work autonomously across these different nodes to be able to achieve what you want to achieve.
We got one question, Ian. Um, I think you kind of explained this overall infrastructure, but a specific example of how you have multiple tasks running at the same time. I know you're going to get into those specific tasks and agents, but just wanted to put that out there as you're thinking about this.
Yeah, I think there's two ways to kick off tasks. One is you manually trigger it because there's something you want it to happen, and then some would be scheduled. So within my harnesses that I use, and I'll get into that in a second, I have a number of tasks that run autonomously. It's at a certain time of the day or after certain other actions have happened. And then there are other ones where, I'll come in and start my day and be like, hey, there's like a handful of different things that, I haven't built a preformed agent on, and I want to have those tasks run in the background. So it's interesting, like, before I used to be like focus on one single thing. Now I'm like, how can I kick off as many agents as possible and then, constantly recheck in back on each of them.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. Here's how I break down what all my jobs are in life. Number one, I have a lot of personal jobs. I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I have friends, I'm a son, and I'm a son-in-law. And the harness I've picked for that to have like clean separation is I use ChatGPT. So in ChatGPT, all my personal things stay there. I don't put any work in there. I keep it very, very separated. And I'll give a funny example about that in a second. On the professional side, I do all of my CEO tasks and CEO work within Claude. That's Claude Chat, Claude Cowork. It's all in Claude projects. It all stays within there. But then I still do a lot of frontline work as an individual contributor on the company. So things like analytics, some software engineering and automation. I use Claude Code as my harness. And then lastly, as an insurance professional, I do dog food, our own tools, and actually use Pathwork whenever I'm working with somebody who's looking for insurance or wants to understand more about the market. So I'll give you a funny example. I didn't always have this as like a clean separation. I used to use ChatGPT for both my professional and personal life. And I won't forget there was like this one thing I was trying to figure out for Pathwork. I think I was doing like quarterly planning. And I asked it, how should I think about, tasking out these different things to my team? And it gave really, really good advice. And then the last thing it said was, but just remember, your daughter has a banana allergy, so make sure you don't have that for your team there. So that was when I was like, okay, I think I need to separate like work from personal life. Because I don't need my daughter's allergies getting into, how I plan for the quarter or annually for the year. So, bringing it back to this idea of jobs and tasks, my title hasn't changed. I'm still CEO of the business, but if you were to videotape me doing my job a year ago and you were videotape me doing my job now, it's entirely different because the tasks have totally changed. So today, as CEO of Pathwork, I really have six major agents that I have working on my behalf across the company. And there are sub agents beneath each one of these. So across this, just kind of quickly going through each one, I have a finance agent that helps me prep month-end books, do forecasting, understanding how the business is performing. I have a product agent, spend a lot of time thinking about how we can improve our existing products and new products we want to bring to market. So it's a thought partner for me to pull together product specs, find edge cases, think through gaps. On the sales and business development side, I've done some really interesting things like before, a meeting we would potentially have with a prospect, there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of thinking from our side, and we'll have it, prep any collateral, pull a deck together, kind of save some time of the pointing and clicking doing that. And then interestingly, I recently was in New York for a conference and I had a Claude agent, go through the conference app and like first triage it for anybody that would be relevant for me to meet with and kind of just made a curated list for me, where before that was something I was doing manually before every event I went to. Um, and then in the right-hand column here, for our Pathwork brand and marketing, I have some agents kind of keep track of stuff. I'll actually give an example in a second. And then our daily operations. So I have it triage my email. I have it do weekly planning for me. Just kind of keep track of what matters and is surfacing it for me. So I'm not the one going through and manually determining all that.
Ian, we got a great question here. Which of these agents took the most attempts to get right? And anything you had to take back and do again yourself, which I think we can all relate to when using AI.
Yeah, it's a great question. The finance one has been the most difficult by far because it's like the most critical task. So that's when I'm constantly updating. Like we get new sources of information, new data. To answer the question a little bit more broadly, like the conference app one, I had never done anything like that before. But I asked the agent to go do it and it did it first try perfectly, which like totally blew my mind because that's something that would take me a quarter of a day before. And the example I actually give on the next page, I can talk a little bit more about what that process was. So I'll actually jump to that now if it makes sense, Maddie.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. I wanted to pick something to demo live, and it was tough. Like I said, there's a lot of kind of private and secure information that lives within my harnesses. So I try to kind of pick the right one that I think would be the best to show off. So I'm gonna tell a story about one that I use on a weekly basis. What we do at Pathwork is we have a company LinkedIn page. For those that follow it, we try to have really useful and valuable content that we have through it. And then also, I have a lot of connections with people in the world, introduce new prospects, customers, things like that. And we think it's valuable for people to follow our company page to keep up to date of new products, things we focus on, cool things we're hearing in the market. So Ian, a year ago, used to manually invite people to our company page. And I would do it usually on the weekends at night. And I just like a lot of point and clicks. I was like, man, if this is something I could automate, it'd be so much better. Thought about like hiring, an admin to do it for me. So, 4 months ago, I tried to build an AI tool to do it and it didn't work. I couldn't figure it out. I spent a couple hours on it and I was like, I don't want to do this. And then about 2 months ago, I started trying again and it worked perfectly. So I'll show it in a second. But before showing how that task works, there's other agents or sub agents that operate before it. So I have an agent that runs weekly that keeps track of all my in real life, virtual, and email introductions I make. So these are people I meet in the space, customers we may get on a call, anything like that. It's just kind of keeping a running list for me. And then a separate agent reads that list every week, creates a proposed set of people that it thinks I should connect with based on the context of those conversations, and sends me that list. I triage the list. I have final approval of people I think I should connect with or invite to our company page, and then I approve it. And then the last thing is I have a separate agent keep track of all the people who currently follow our pages and keeps track of all that current stuff. So give me a second. I will pull up how this works in real time. So pulling up my Claude account, I have what I call our weekly LinkedIn invite. You can see here it runs on a weekly basis going all the way back to April 10th when I started kicking this off. It has full instructions, objectives, context. This is with me kind of working with it to ultimately create the task and how it works. So I'll kick this off in real time. Um, so if I actually do this and send it into it, what's going on is the agent's starting to kind of kick up and get started. So it's going to start reading all that context I put in before, start accessing those tools, and start getting to work. The good thing is, with my first few times I ran this, gave it different direction, taught it different things for how to work. I'm going to wait for it to actually start. You can see on the right, it created that progress. So as I described, it's looking at that Google Doc that I keep a tracker of people I've connected with. Once it's got access to that, it's going to start, opening up a browser window and start looking at this. So you can see here from the doc, the last person that we added to our company page was a woman by the name of Sarah Persh. Thank you for being an example on our webinar. And it's now going to open up a Google Chrome browser and start working. So I'll just show that. I'm not going to let it run for too long. But if I actually go over to Chrome, you can see here it started to open up a tab. Should navigate to LinkedIn in a second. Actually, I think it's right over here. And it's going to start navigating my LinkedIn for me. So actually controlling the web browser, finding people I'm connected with, going to our company page and starting to manually invite them. Again, this is a task that used to probably take me 30 to 40 minutes every week. And now it's something I think on Friday afternoons that I have run every single time. Cool. So what I wanted to share next was what are these mechanics? How are these tasks working and how do they kick off? And there's really 7 things that I think define it as you start to dig deeper. So number one, there's memories. So within every harness, there's context that persists across each chat. This is kind of like your baseline context that always exists within the application. So it starts to know me, what I think is good work, starts to understand my business and what other initiatives I'm working on within the company. It also keeps track of artifacts. So these are work that comes out. These are decks, documents, Excel models, any small applications that are there, always saved and persistent within the tool. I've mentioned this before, but MCP connections. So this is the connective tissue to all my other enterprise applications, like my email client, our folder and file storage, Slack, HubSpot, banking, everything else. I have my agent harnesses have access to so they can pull out if it's necessary for them to work on. I try to create a project for every work stream. So it's like a defined container, each with its own instructions and files. And then also there's model selection. This is something I'm still working on, but it's a tricky balance between trying to have models that are fast, some that work longer and slower and have higher intelligence, And ultimately, what's starting to happen in the space is you're having to start to pay different prices for this. It's like emerged in the last few months. And then, as I've described before, I never try to bank on a one shot. So, accuracy I've learned comes from decomposition. The more small audible units of work that you can create, the better off you'll be. And then lastly, one thing I do a little bit differently is I do actually have a Mac Mini. So this is like a little desktop computer that sits here in my office, and it's an always-on computer. So if I'm out and about, let's say traveling for work, my laptop's closed, I can't access it, I don't have good internet, I don't have enough time to run a task on my computer, because like the trick is your computer has to be open to have these things run. Actually, from my phone can dispatch tasks to that persistent agent that again has access to all of my different tools and applications. So it's been valuable for me. I can give like one example is I was on a business trip and like got an email where I needed to like look through old files. And I just from my phone sitting on the tarmac was able to dispatch some work to be able to done. And essentially once I was up in the air and had access to Wi-Fi, it was already done for me. So it's been a cool way for me to kind of get an extra edge on productivity of having like a separate machine that's always on and ready to work.
Ian, quick question about your LinkedIn workflow. Is there a connector to LinkedIn that you're using?
Not directly to LinkedIn. So what it's doing is it's spinning up a browser and actually accessing it from my computer. So no, it's not directly integrated to LinkedIn. It's actually navigating the front end of the browser to be able to complete that. And like looking at the HTML code there, I saw it when I first created it, like make mistakes, not clicking on the right thing. So I told it where it was. So in all or all new iterations, it would be able to handle it.
Perfect. Thanks.
So I'm starting to get a little bit to the back end of the presentation where I'll start to summarize some things. So sharing what my full stack is across all AI tools. So the harnesses I said I use ChatGPT personally. I use Pathwork for my insurance producer work. I use Claude Code, Claude Design for kind of my professional CEO tasks. But then over here on the right are some other tools that I use. So at Pathwork, we subscribe to Otter, which is note takers that can join meetings. We found it to be really valuable to just have really detailed notes of all the conversations happening across the company. We can revisit them. We can share it with people who haven't been there. That does use LLMs to be able to summarize and keep track of the information. One that I've grown to love is a tool called WhisperFlow. It's like a really high quality dictation tool that works on both your computer and your phone. So when I'll start a new project or a new task, sometimes I'll just speak into my computer and just flow of kind of train of thought, speak in and add as much information as I can. I've mentioned MCP connectors, and then we actually use Google Workspace as a company. So that's like what we use for email. That's what we use for um, our Drive and where we store files. So that comes with Gemini, which I actually find to be a really, really valuable other kind of harnesser tool. So I have it analyze call summaries. Also, Gemini is embedded in my Gmail. So whenever there's like kind of quick responses I need to get out to people, sometimes I'll have Gemini drafted as a first draft. So kind of some of the full stack tools I use.
All right. Ian, before you reveal how much these tools cost, we're going to play a little game of The Price is AI. If everyone can see that, if you wouldn't mind answering what you think Ian spends per month on his AI stack that he just reviewed. Very curious to see what everyone thinks. Give it a couple more seconds. All right. You guys might be surprised. All right. I'm going to end the poll, share the results, and it looks like the winner is 100 to 250. Okay. And a good number of people saying 250 to 1000. So that's interesting. All
Yeah.
right. Ian, I'll let you do the reveal.
Do the big reveal. So all in all, I added this up. It's actually something I hadn't done before. I spend in total about $180 a month. So broke it down across each one of the tools. Major cost sources. I do have an expanded subscription for Claude, which costs about $100 a month. My ChatGPT bill is $25. And then these other little tools are somewhere between $15 and $20. One could argue Gemini, which was again embedded within our Google Workspace already, is another $20 a month. So As I looked at this, I was also expecting it to be a little bit more. Again, it's not something I benchmarked or audited before. I knew it wasn't a lot. But when I looked at it and I'm like, wow, I'm spending less than $200 a month to do all this stuff. Like, it's totally changed how I think about it. So, if I had to argue what the ROI would be, like if I say an hour of my time is somewhere between an 100 and $200, that means I only need to save about an hour a month. I think on a daily basis, things I used to be working on is probably 3 to 5 hours a day. So these have really changed how I work. Again, there's a lot more things that I do and have pretty much just increased my ambition of what I think is possible. So, to kind of close things out, I want to talk a little bit about where I'm experimenting, and then we'll have some key takeaways at the end, and then we'll open it up fully to Q&A. So for me, how I think about where I want to spend time trying to automate things is I do have a philosophy, which is something can be automated, it should be automated. So as I look at like what is really manual, what's spending me a lot of time, I do spend a lot of time on accounts payable and accounts receivable. So if there was an AI native tool that came out, it would be something I'd be really, really interested in trying because I don't think it's really, adding value or really expanding our business. The other thing is I use Apple Notes a ton, take a ton of notes in my phone, ton of notes on my computer. I don't hate Apple Notes, but it isn't really integrated into my stack and how I think about things. So if there's something that's better built for agents or better integrated, I've been thinking about trying it. And then, as I mentioned, I just use Gmail. I think it's okay. I don't think it's great. I've heard and kind of tried a couple of AI native email clients, and none have really surprised me. But again, like I said, I'm constantly refactoring what I'm doing and looking for new things. So this is one I think over the next 6 months, I may download a couple things and see what works.
Ian, when you're finding that a tool just like isn't sticking, it's just not, working for you how you want it, how do you decide when to give up on it versus like keep pushing on it?
It's a really good question. Um, I think when I just become too frustrated. Um, yeah, and I think it has to have something that really like sings where I'm like that, is this really like changing how I work? If not, I tend to be like wait and see. So kind of has to have a magical moment within the first hour of using it. And if it ends up being more frustrating or too hard to adopt, then I'll move on. So, um, you know, all is fair and love in trying AI tools, I guess. So I'll get rid of it when I need to.
Awesome. We got a few more good questions here. It seems like a lot of leaders are using Apple and Apple products and Chrome. Thoughts on PC/Edge with AI integration?
I can only speak from experience. I haven't tried that. I would have to think that it would be improving. So this is more just like hypothesis, but the PC market's a huge percentage of what people are using. So I would imagine if the tools aren't there yet or keeping up with where things are on Mac OS, that it would come soon. So unfortunately, I can't speak personally to it. I don't also hold a PC, so I've adapted it for like my Mac and Apple ecosystem. But I remain optimistic that there would be really valuable tools built for the PC market as well too.
Awesome. Thanks for taking these. And then one other question, how much time per week are you spending on this experimentation?
Good question. Tends to be pretty lumpy. So I'm somebody I think that's a little stubborn. So I'll do things and keep doing them until like I finally give up and I'm like, okay, this is something I want to fix or change. So I don't like have a operating system now for like carving out like I'm going to spend 4 hours a week trying to automate things. Typically, it's very much like lumpiness with a, hey, I have a week with a little bit more time to try something new. Or I'll be influenced from people I respect in the industry. Or somebody's like, hey, I tried this. Or a teammate of mine is like, hey, I'm using this thing now and it's really valuable. So for me, typically where this stuff happens is like evenings or weekends where I want to kind of try and experiment with new things is when I'll do it. Um, I'd say like overall, if I looked at a month, probably like half a day I would spend automating things. So like at this point, it's like a lot of the persistent stuff that I've built over time is now running in the background.
Awesome. Thanks.
Cool. So then the last thing, and I have very strong opinions on this, is I personally do not use any AI when writing. Um, So that's like LinkedIn posts, that's internal company communications, that's anything that goes to clients. And kind of like the line I draw is when writing is the product. So when I write a LinkedIn post, when I have to write something that's very important for the business, it needs to be like my creative internal thinking. And I find that these tools for creative writing are very, very average and are not very persuasive and not very witty. So like I personally have like a I don't use AI to write things for me because I just don't think it's very good. Could that change? Yeah, I think it will. But currently, from where I've seen it, is like these tools are really good at just like automating work and tasks that are like broken down. But if you need to have creative thinking, I'm just not really seeing them do what I think is high quality work. So Maddie gave that example at the top. It was literally yesterday. We're like, hey, we should put a poll at the beginning of the presentation. And we were like, what does Claude think? And it came up with that like really lame poll. And we're like, we don't want to put that in front of people. Like, that's not fun at all. Like, that would be like, if you asked anybody, that would be the first easiest thing they thought of. And that's just like an awesome example of they're not really that creative. They're not witty. They don't really make things like fun or entertaining.
Yeah, totally. There's a new company that just launched. I'm forgetting the name of it, but they're basically their value prop is like adding taste to AI. And I think they're starting with design. So I'm interested to see developments there. But yeah,
Yeah. And I
totally
definitely wouldn't
agree.
be the only person with a with a hard opinion on that. I don't know how many other people are kind of sick and tired of reading some of these things that seem just like AI slop.
100%.
Cool. So this is the last thing I wanted to walk through. This is just a summary of what I think are the most valuable things to take away from the conversation today. I just want to say thank you to everybody for carving out time from your day. I hope this was very valuable for you. So here's how I think you can get started. So like I said, I don't think the jobs are changing, but assuredly how the tasks get done are. So start to think about your job, decompose it into tasks, then try to match each task to a tool. Um, Harnesses are this new work environment. For me, it was a huge unlock when I started separating these different harnesses for different aspects and jobs within my life. And then kind of pick one and stick to it. It starts to compound, it starts to build memories. Those specific tasks like start to build on each other and get better. And then think about your team of agents. So I always say like one agent per work stream, do it in a project, get it on a schedule. If it starts to break, fix it a little bit and start working with it. And then if something doesn't work, try again 3 months later. Like I said, with like the LinkedIn company invites, um, I tried it 4 or 5 months ago, didn't work, spent like an hour on it. 2 months later, it worked magically. So keep refactoring, keep thinking about it, keep trying new things. It's all still so new. I thought putting this presentation together, that timeline I showed on the third or fourth slide, I'm like, I wonder like 5 years from now what this will look like. And I was kind of breaking my own brain thinking about it. So got back to the task at hand of putting together this presentation. So in conclusion, want to say again, thank you all. I hope some of the insights today were really, really valuable that you all can take back home and start to get working on it immediately.
Amazing. Thanks, Ian. We have a few minutes left, and we do have some great questions in here. So I'm gonna try to get through as many as we can. So, Ian, a few slides ago, you mentioned overloading context. Can you further define that, what it means, content, instructions, etc.?
Yep. So give me 1 second. So really how I overload context is particularly when I'm doing like a hard task is I'll always start with dictation. So I will speak into my computer. I can do it much faster than I type and we'll just stream of consciousness say everything I think is valuable. So I use that tool, Whisper Flow. I'll speak into my computer, say everything that's on my mind, why it matters, thinking through it, and I can get a lot of context into there. So it's truly like the amount of words that are put into the tool. And then second, if there's any documents that are relevant, web pages, anything like that, I put it all in there. So like really this idea that like you can put a million tokens of context into the tool, which is like books and books and books of information. Like the tools can sift through this. You can help it think through what's right. And I found this to be way, way more valuable than trying to like tweak prompts. I found it much better to just be like, here's everything that's relevant, like get it in there and just start thinking through it.
Awesome. Um, Interesting. Yeah, we're getting some great questions. If we don't get to them, we'll follow up with you guys. Um, how are you driving broader adoption of AI within the company, like among the team?
Um, so there's a couple things we do. We don't have anything too formal. We're still a small team. There's only 16 of us. So I think like functionally, we all kind of talk and share about it in one-on-ones of what's working. We do have a Slack channel that we call like AI hacks, where we try to put in things that work and how it worked. But I think we have a team that's, particularly AI native. So we're all trying to be at like the cutting edge and it starts to be fun and sharing that stuff. So we haven't done anything too formally. I think that may have to change, but um, more of it, it's like we probably talk about the things we try that don't work rather than me pushing for people to do something, beyond too much.
Yeah, totally. Or when something's like super useful. I remember when I first started using the HubSpot connector, I was like, wow, this is game changing for deal analysis, pulling, pipeline data, things like that. Actually, on that note, Ian, we got a question about sort of using it for salespeople in general. I know you can speak to that from all different angles, so maybe you can dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, if I were to break down like the role of selling, like really the core of it is you want to understand your customer's need and figure out if your solution fits that need. And sometimes it's like complex to work through it, but that's really like the magic and core of the job. Unfortunately, a lot of that is a lot of other things like scheduling meetings, keeping track of the things you've discussed, building presentations, other ways to like communicate what's valuable. So for sales folks, I think it's been so valuable for preparation. So like getting your things in place, getting your transcripts and kind of like your angles and things you want to go through best done before the call. And then where we use it on the team is we actually have it coach us after the call. So we see, like again, we've done some cool things within Gemini where it will have it go back through, look through transcripts, where we could have improved, where we could have gotten better. I call it reviewing game tape. So it's just like I always try to use sports analogies whenever I can. So we have it kind of look back and see how we could have gotten better. So I think with all salespeople, you should always be trying to hone your craft, and we've used those tools in those ways.
Great. Anyone else, Ian, besides yourself, that the audience should follow for advice, tips, etc.?
I think I'll get back to people with a follow-up on that. That's like a really good question. And I don't want to like say a name because there are a couple people that I follow. So Maddie, maybe you and I take that as a takeaway of like we can have that be a little pack that we send all the registrants after this of like cool podcasts, LinkedIn, things like that, where people are kind of trying to experiment and work on this stuff.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, and we actually we have a monthly newsletter called The Edge. If you're subscribed to it, we include like other articles, podcasts, people to follow, things that we think are valuable. So make sure you subscribe and look out for that in your inbox because we'll have some good takeaways in there too. Sweet. Well, I'll end it on this last question. For somebody who's truly like just starting out, Ian, what do you think is like the one thing they should do tomorrow morning? That's kind of the most pressing thing to jump on.
Yeah, I think it's funny. The answer hasn't changed in like 2 years. The first time I ever did a presentation like this was 2 years ago. I went to a great life insurance conference in the space called LIDMA. And again, it was like, I think I had founded the company only 3 or 4 months before. We only had like two customers at that time. uh, I said, just go download ChatGPT and start playing with it. It's like everybody has a smartphone. You can download it, put a credit card in to pay $20 a month, and just start asking questions and start connecting it to some of your personal stuff. Do a project in it. I mean, I can give one example is like the other day I was curious about evolution and just had like a 10-minute conversation with ChatGPT to like learn more, figure out more. So I still think the best thing to do is just like download ChatGPT, start playing with it, seeing where these tools work and where they don't work. Once you're ready to start moving from there, there's lots of other things you can do, like start experimenting with the other things that I shared within the stack, like dictation, building projects, running automated tasks. But number one, download ChatGPT, start playing with it, start using it, see where these tools sing, see where maybe they're not quite ready. I think it's the best thing you can do.
Awesome. Great closer. Well, thank you, Ian, so much for answering all these questions and for the great session here. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to be here. Really, really appreciate all the engagement and questions. Was a really fun session for us. I love seeing all this, just like curiosity and engagement. So, hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Ian, anything else you wanted to touch on before we go?
No, thank you. And, I'm available if there's any follow-up questions or help, let me know. Maddie and I will have a follow-up here too with some of the questions that we think would be valuable resources for you all. So again, thank you and see you next time.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.